Everyone, thanks so much for jumping on and watching the video today. For those who may not know me, my name is Travis, and I get the privilege of serving churches and pastors in my role. And so for those of you who've been following me for a while, you know that this month we sent out a survey and we said, hey, what do you kind of want me to kind of talk about? I'm here to serve you, and so I want to talk about the things that you care about. By the way, I apologize for all the noises like of nature and everything. It may sound like a jungle, and I'm just outside and it's a beautiful day, and so I thought I'd shoot this video outside today, but apologize if there's a lot of noise and things going on. Anyway, so we sent out that survey and we gave like 4 different options, and 3 of those options it was actually really close, and then one, it seems like nobody is interested in hearing about talking about giving and finances, those things. So it looks like maybe the financial area is going really well within your churches, and so hey, that's always great to know. And so the other 3 were actually really close, but the one that went out was we're going to be talking about how to recruit, how to train, how to retain volunteers. And so I get the pleasure of talking about that for the next probably 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. We'll see how long it goes. And so I want to say thank you for those of you who participated in the survey and who kind of helped out and kind of picking the theme for this month. And so let me start out as we talk about volunteers. There was one thing that came to my mind, and I think it's the core, and I think it's the key piece of everything. And it may be good news to some, and it's likely it's going to be bad news for a lot of others that are listening to this. But here's what I know, and here's what I believe this is the truth. So much of what goes into trying to get people to serve within the local church goes back to, is our church doing a good job sharing vision and living out the mission that Jesus has already given us? Are we doing that? Are we going into the world? Are we making disciples? Are we seeing people baptized? Are we living out the gospel in the way that Jesus talked about? Or have we got to a place of just sort of complacency, that we're just kind of going through the motions? And if we're really honest, our church has become very insider focused, and it's kind of more about the people who are coming there, and very much less about the people that we're trying to reach. We may even kind of the people we're trying to reach has almost even become secondary to us. And so here's what I know, is that if your church is not doing a good job of, again, living out the gospel, of living out and doing the mission that Jesus has already given us, if we're not, as pastors and as leaders, if we're not painting that vision of, hey, we're trying to reach the community, we're trying to reach not just the community, we're trying to reach the world. If you're not doing that as a church and as a leader, it's going to be very difficult for you to recruit volunteers, for you to ever have enough people. Because here's just the truth of the matter is, people don't want to be a part of an organization and serve in an organization that's not doing those things. People want to be feel like they're a part of a winning team. And if it feels like it's the same old every Sunday and we haven't seen anybody baptized in months at our church, you're going to have a very hard time getting people to serve within your church, because they feel like, you know what, it doesn't make a difference. And people want to be part of organizations that make a difference. They want to feel like they can make a difference. And so your mission and your vision is at the core of everything that you do. Like, it is the most important thing. It's not going to matter. The next few weeks, I'm gonna walk you through a lot of tips, a lot of ideas, a lot of just things that I've learned over 10, 15 years of ministry and serving, and having a big part to do with volunteers and recruiting volunteers and organizing all that type of stuff. I mean, it's been one of my primary roles for years. I'm just telling you, that stuff is not going to matter. It's not, you can do everything else that I'm going to tell you over the next few weeks, but if you don't have this right, if you don't get the mission and vision of your church right, it's not going to matter. It's not going to make a difference. You're going to continue, maybe you get a few people to volunteer because you've because of out of obligation, they're going to do it, and you're kind of guilting them into it because we don't have enough volunteers for maybe church camp this summer, or we don't have enough volunteers for VBS, or we don't have enough volunteers on Sunday mornings. And so we're going to beg people and try to get people. And you know what? If y'all don't do it, then I'm going to have to do it, and somebody else is going to have to preach. And we're going to have to use all these tactics that may work for a little bit, that may get somebody to sign up for a few weeks or whatever, but they're going to drop out over time really soon. And really, they're going to be just serving out of obligation, and not because they're really enjoying and feeling like they're using the gifts that God has given them. And so we have to get our mission and vision right. Like, it has to be the core of everything that we do. And so if you're church right now and you said, you know what, we need help in this. You know what, we're at a place where we've kind of have become stagnant. We've kind of lost this. Then I want to give you just a few things that you could do to kind of get started again. Because here's the thing, momentum is really, really hard to gain in the beginning, right? Momentum is very hard. Like, it's going to feel like you're pushing against a giant boulder that doesn't want to move, and so it's going to take time to do that. And so just know that it's going to take time here for you to get back to a place that you need to get to. And so there's a few keys to be able to get back to that spot and for you to start building momentum. Number one is we just have to add this to our prayer life. It's huge, and for you as the leader personally, like, it has to be a huge part of your prayer life. Like, you have to be very intentional about, hey, I'm going to be praying that my heart breaks for the gospel, my heart breaks for the people in my community, and I'm praying for our church, that our church would be the same way, that our church's hearts are going to be changed. Because over time, what happens, again, they become insider focused. You got hearts that are hardened a little bit. We don't have as many friends that are lost as we used to. A lot of times we're just hanging out with church people. That's the only people we know. We kind of look down upon all the other people who aren't going to church and who aren't living right and stuff. And so we don't really have a heart for those people anymore, if we're real honest about it. We're just trying to avoid them. So you have to pray. As a leader, you set the example. You have to add that to your prayer life, and then you're going to need to, once you get into a rhythm, and once God starts speaking to you through that, like, you need to add it into your church's prayer life. And so on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, on Wednesday nights, midweek service, like, you need to have intentional times of prayer where you're going to be praying for the church, your community, the lost in your community. Because these next two things I'm going to tell you, or really next three things I'm going to tell you, it's all about softening the hearts of the people within your congregation and getting them back focused on, again, the real reason the church exists, the gospel message, that we exist for those who don't know Jesus yet. And we want to make Jesus known with as many people as possible, but you got to get people back there, and it takes time, and it takes intentional effort. And so it starts with prayer. Because we're going to need help, and we need God to be a part of this, and we're going to reach out, and we're going to cry out to God and say, God, help us in this, help change our hearts. And so we're going to be doing that. And then it goes back to how you preach the gospel. Like you have to be very intentional about preaching the gospel, the true gospel, in a way that gets people's minds focused back on the mission that God's given us, right? There's a couple of stories in there that I think about when it comes to this. Is Jesus saying that, like, I have to go through Samaria. There's that story, I believe it's in John 4, and he says, hey, I have a need to go through Samaria. And most of the time the Jews would avoid Samaria, right? Because they looked down upon those people. Those people were less than, and so they didn't want anything to do with them, and so they would avoid going through those areas. And again, in some of our churches, what happens is us as people, we sort of can get that same mentality of, like, you know what, we sort of are, we would never admit this, and maybe we're not even maybe intentional about it, but we sort of start looking down on people who are lost and who don't know Jesus. And so we'll get that same mentality. And so you have to remind people that Jesus did not avoid those people. Jesus absolutely loved those people. Those are the people that he ran to. Those are the people that he made sure that he came in contact with. He said, the sick don't need a doctor, or the healthy don't need a doctor. It's the sick that need a doctor. Yet that story in the story of the Good Samaritan, where you have the priest who walks by and leaves the guy on the side of the road. He can't be, can't touch him. He's going to be unclean. You have I think it was like an assistant, a church assistant type deal. Maybe it's a secretary, a treasurer, a deacon, a trustee. And they said, I can't be bothered by that. Like, I can't be seen with that person. And then you had this Samaritan, which everybody looked down upon, but he was the person who would actually take the guy out of the ditch and bandage his wounds and care for him, and then even went so far as even paying for his room and said, you know what, if it takes longer, I'm going to pay more. Those are the type people that we have to be. That's the type church that we have to be. You have to preach the gospel in a way that keeps bringing people back to this is who we're supposed to be, because people will forget it. They just do. If you're not constantly reminding them of the gospel, of why we exist, of what we're supposed to do as followers of Christ, if you don't remind people of it, they'll make up their own ideas, and normally it's not good. Normally, again, it's very insider focused. It's very much about what's best for me, what I like, and all those type of things. And so you have to get that, you have to root that out of people in order to get back to where you can really have fresh vision, fresh mission. And then once you do that, once we focus on prayer, and once we focus on we're going to be preaching the gospel in a way that highlights just the nature of Jesus and who he was and who we're supposed to be as his followers. Then the third thing is, once that starts happening, what hopefully is going to happen is you're going to be able to share stories of life change. Now, it's not going to happen all at once, and it's going to be very slow. A lot of times it's going to be you personally, that you've invited somebody to church and you've been building those relationships with them. But you want to be able to share stories. And again, like I said, it could be something small at first, but sharing stories of, this person came to church and this person gave their life to Christ. This person was baptized. And you want to constantly be sharing how God is working within your church and how you see God moving within your church. Those are the things that's going to, again, go back to what we talked about at the beginning. Those are the things that's going to remind people, oh, you know what? Like, this church is making a difference. I want to be part of a church that's making a difference. And so now they're going to be more likely to say, yeah, I want to step up and serve because I'm hearing how this church is making a difference and I want to be a part of that. That's key in everything. And again, you as churches, as church leaders, we cannot share stories of life change enough. Like, we constantly need to be gathering it. We constantly need to be looking at it, looking for it. And sometimes you got to be, especially in the beginning, like, you're going to have to look really hard. And some of the wins and stories may seem very, very simple, right? It may seem really easy. But those are the things that you start with, because again, you're going to build momentum slowly and over time. But over time, you're going to get that boulder rolling, right? And once it starts rolling, some of this stuff becomes a little bit easier. But in the beginning, again, I just want you to know it takes time. I was talking to a pastor a week or so ago, and he's in a revitalization situation. He's been there about a year now, and he was talking to me about, like, hey, this is really hard, and like, it just seems like, when I try to initiate change and things, people are really reluctant at it and things. And I was like, yeah, like, it's going to be hard, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot more time than we actually realize. In revitalization standpoint, it's it may be 3 to 5 years before you get little wins. That's just reality, I'm afraid. And so we have to prepare for that, and we have to acknowledge that, like, we're going to have to be putting in the work for months and months and months and years at times before we actually see some change take place. Your church didn't get to where it is right now overnight. You know what? It didn't happen in the last year. It's probably been 10, 15, 20 years, maybe 50 years in some churches' cases. And so you're not going to change that overnight. It's going to take intentional effort, intentional prayer over generally a long period of time for you to be successful. And so, but if you'll do that, and you'll put in the time, and you'll put in the work, and you'll put in the effort, you're going to see good things happen. You're going to see life change happen, and it's going to make a difference. And so the very first thing we got to focus on is that we got to get our mission and we got to get our vision right. And if we don't get those things right, then nothing else we do matters. All right? If you have any other questions about this, thoughts about it, as always, you can reach out to me. It's travis.stevens@generalbaptist.com, and I would love to help you and love to provide any other resources to you as well. All right. I hope all of you have a great day, and I'll talk to you again next week.